Good morning, guys. Welcome back to another video. Today's video is about my new Polini 202 on a MacFly frame. I just got the boxes. One pro tip is you're opening up your Paramotor boxes. Don't just blindly shred them open, because you never know if you're going to accidentally cut something. At least in the center area. Let's put the knife down before we cut something, including myself. Best of wishes, MacFly 2024. Here's the thing that we're waiting for. Yeah, Polini Thor 202 right there. All right, guys, welcome back. This Polini Thor 202 on a MacFly travel cage 150 with carbon spars is now put together. I can't take credit for it. That is all Mike, the mechanic. He is one of our main instructors. He helps us with every one of our classes. He put his time in today getting this bad boy all put together. Now, we have not adjusted the tuning in the slightest. We're at sea level. They are supposedly set for sea level. I have some friends that never even touched theirs after getting it because they live at sea level. Right now, we're gonna weigh it. We have got a hunting scale capacity of 330 pounds. Okay, here we go. Got it in the sky. We've got, let's see, 67 pounds dry. 66 to 67 pounds dry for the big cage, spinning a 140 prop Polini Thor 202 full of radiator fluid and a Dudek comfort harness. We're gonna mix some gas. We're running Redline Racing fully synthetic oil. We are going to run 40 to 1. It has a flash starter starting mechanism that I need to make sure I don't screw up. Okay, all right, okay. Oh, actually that doesn't feel any heavier than a Moster.
Cool. Now, the starter needs a specific pull. You're gonna slowly pull it till you get in that notch. Like, you're gonna feel resistance.
Yeah.
And then it's gonna have that notch where it like stops having resistance, but if you pull any more, you feel the motor kind of go whop, like over.
Yep.
You're gonna get it to that notch. You're gonna put your hands all the way back to the motor, and then you're gonna fucking grip on it. Just whack it, but only from that notch. Don't just like pull it repeatedly. You gotta prime it to that notch. You gotta prime the starter. It's got that recoil spring in it, and it's really delicate.
Yeah, pretty much like our flash starter, yeah.
Yep, that's exactly what it is.
Oh, okay. Yeah. There she is. She's a ripping.
Oh, she sounds good!
Second pull.
Only because I was hesitant on the throttle. Okay, guys, well, started second pull. I think it would have started first pull if I had used a little more throttle, but I was a little nervous of starting it, to be honest. It has a flash starter system, as you kind of heard. You can't just yank on it. Yeah, you gotta get it to the top. You know, the way I describe it is there's two U's. There's like a long throw and a short throw. You gotta get it in the middle of the short throw, go back up, and then punch it, and it fired right up. Idling at 2,000 basically.
Right on the money.
Dude, it sounds like a dirt bike too.
It does.
I love it.
I love it. It sounds awesome.
I have flown this now for just over 10 hours, 10.45 hours on this engine, and today I'm going to share some of my thoughts while I fly it through the canyon tonight. Let's put that choke on. It's the first time we've flown it today. Let's prime it. I'm going to squeeze the bulb until it's firm. There we go. We've got approximately 8 liters on the dot of fuel. Look at that beautiful windsock. Oh, yeah. That's just what we like to see. Look at her. She just wants to fly. Good girl. Good girl. Okay, let's climb on in. Let's go do the thing. Okay, so what I'd like to do with this Polini is I like to give it quite a bit of time to warm up. At least 2 minutes, I'd say. And then I slowly work my way to full. You guys will watch my kind of pre-start procedures here. So my wing's over there. I'm over here. I like to start it before I get to my wing. That way it's got a little time to just warm up. Pull, 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 top dead, punch it. First pull every time if you do it right. So I have my EGT sensor right here. It's indicating temperatures and RPMs. I am monitoring 2 separate temperatures. I'm monitoring my cruising and I'm monitoring my wide open throttle. For cruising, I don't want to exceed 730 to 750. Wide open throttle, I don't want to exceed 600. Cruising is 730 to 750. Wide open throttle is 600. All right, I'm gonna run it up now. I'll watch this sensor here. Got 448 degrees, just slowly working my way. If it's tuned right, it should jitter a little bit as you get it to full. There's a little jitter. There's 85. She punches at 85. Let's go. Reverse inflation, turn, and go. Everything looks good. Temps are 630. I like to have my EGT sensor show me temps, then RPMs. So temps down in the main menu, if you can see, and RPMs up here. So we got 6.1, 6100, 668 Celsius. Gonna pop some cruise control on, just a little bit higher than cruising on that cruise control. Keeps those temperatures down. The hot spot for the Polini is its cruising 5,600 RPM range. That's where it'll get a little toasty. See, it's 4:39. Sunset is like 5:30. So we've got like 20 minutes of time. Excuse me, got like an hour of time. 7:07, so it gets hottest while cruising. 5,400 RPM, 713 degrees. I don't like hyper focus on the temp gauge and just stare at it the whole time, but I am constantly checking it. One thing that I have found that the Polini does like is not sitting at 1 RPM. It doesn't like to just sit. Especially with cruising, it gets a little toasty. So I change it up. I climb a little, like I'm doing right now. Popped up to 6,200 RPM, 63. Now we're at 670 degrees Celsius. So we already came down from the 720 that we were at to 630. All right, so I'll climb for a little ways and I'll just let the temps kind of come down and chill. And then I will descend and popping down to like 4,900 RPMs, which is where we're at. Temp 656. So I just play with it a little bit. It's not excessive. It's not like I'm constantly just thinking about it, but I am playing with those temps just ever so slightly. It's just become normal to me. As I cruise over there, my cruising RPMs hang out somewhere between 53 and 5,600 RPMs. That's maintaining altitude at sea level, basically. That's probably what I'm at. And that's pretty on par with what I cruise at on a Moster. It's not like I'm cruising really low, but I have found that my fuel burn is hanging out somewhere between 3 liters an hour and 4 liters an hour. My Moster at this altitude is cruising somewhere between 4 and 5 liters an hour. 4 is if I'm cruising, and 5, 6 is if I'm ripping. So I have found it to be more efficient. Peaking that temp, we're right at 721. See, we've just been cruising at 56. So we'll just climb for a minute. And it may seem that it's constantly this thing you have to do. It is something I do think about a lot more, is the temperature. You know, on a Moster, it just never crosses my mind. I take the Moster out, I go rip on it, I yank on it, I spank on it, I never really worry about it. In the last 12 years of flying Mosters, I've only ever blown one of them up, and it was actually last week. And that's because I ran it too lean. And that was my mistake, and it was clearly too lean. This, I do have to think about it. And I do think about it, and I do somewhat worry, you could say. The worry's gone away as time has gone on. But it is something that crosses my mind is, oh, what temp am I running? 699. I don't really need to worry about it nearly as much as I do. It's running right. It's not too lean. It's actually a hair rich. And so its temps are perfect. I don't really need to worry about it. You know, I'm cruising somewhere 58, 580 on full throttle, under the 600. And my cruising RPMs are around 720. So I'm under my 730, I'm under my 600, both wide open and cruising. I'm chilling, but I look at it and I think about it. And I like this little thing. You know, here's how it is attached. It's just alien taped onto the motor. The next thing that I'll talk a little bit about is the torque steer and torque compensation. I'm running the McFly frame. Absolutely in love with the McFly frame. It's the 150 cage spinning a 140 prop with the carbon spars to help counteract that torque steer. The combination between the built-in compensation right here on these swing arms and the carbon spars is very, very nice. I find it to fly very nice. It's basically straight while cruising. If you can notice, I haven't really been drifting. And if I go all the way to full throttle, it's ever so slightly to the left. If I dump it and go to idle, it does drift quite a bit to the right. Now I can counteract that with some weight shift and fly straight. It's a little hard with the 360 cam. I'm trying not to drop it. But here I am flying straight off power. So I am cruising straight with a little weight shift, off power. On power, I'm definitely flying straight, which I think is a shining characteristic of this McFly frame and one of the things that is so beautiful to me about it. Now, the Polini power is definitely very real. I thought it was a little bit of hype. I even said that a couple of days ago, and then I went and flew a Moster. And it's not that the Moster is not powerful. It is plenty of power. I'd be totally fine flying one. It just, the Polini has some kick to it, which I'd hope, coming from a 202cc, 33 horsepower over 25 horsepower engine, I'd hope it has a lot more kick. It does, and it's very different engines and very different weight classes. The Moster is basically 58 pounds. This is 67 pounds. So the Moster is 9 pounds lighter than the Polini. It's noticeable on the weight aspect. I don't have a hard time flying with the weight, but it is more weight. So you get more weight, but you do get that much more power, which is really nice. I find it shines in its efficiency. That's probably my favorite part. And it also shines in its wing over and climb, just pure rock. Let's do a little wing overy thing. Temps are at 722, now they're down 686. 20 Viper XC, Polini Thor 202. Yeah, she goes, bro. She goes way up. I'll just tell you that. When they ask how up does she goes way up there. So where you'll notice the power and wing overs with a more efficient motor is how high you can go and how light you go when you go up there. All right, so I could go really, really high on this 202, as in like skyrocket up and enter late, because I have that much more power. One thing I have noticed is the engine runs a little too hot, and it goes over my 600 all the way up to 620 is what I saw when I am doing wing overs. So it's definitely not an engine that you can come out and just crank a 2-minute long wing over session and just go back to back wing overs. You got to let it kind of breathe. So I'll give it a good 30 minutes run, just like I did, and then I'll let it take a breath in between wing overs by kind of going to idle as I pass the top and I start drifting down. And that little bit of breath that it takes just keeps those temps down. And I found that to be very effective. One of the shining things about this Polini is how just you hit the power and you freaking skyrocket. That's the thing with the Polini. On the Moster, you just can't quite get that I mean, it just rocket ships up there, dude. It just goes. And see, the other thing is, in the canyon like this, where I'm constantly modulating temperatures, I don't think, or excuse me, constantly modulating RPM. I don't really think about my temps because it's always changing in RPM. It's just when I'm cruising or wide open that I really think about those temps. And I don't really need to because it's running correctly, but I just do. It's kind of something to look at. Oh yeah, she runs real nice. Yeah. So I will say, if you go off power and you're trying to drift left or do something to the left, you gotta weight shift real hard to get it to kind of go that way. If you had a little break, it's not a big deal, but the right drift off power is very helpful and hurtful at times. There's that Polini power, baby. That's where it shines. The other thing where it shines is just that efficiency. Like I said, you're just running so efficient. You know, burning 3-4 liters an hour. If you want to go on a 2-hour flight, it's only 8 liters, which I find just insane. You know, coming from especially a Minari, if you've ever flown a Minari, you know they're just gas drinking fuel, not efficient motors in the slightest. And that's what I flew for a couple of years, and so now being on something where I can put 4 liters and fly an hour in 1 gallon, it just feels so foreign. I did fly it completely out the other night, and she ran until the very last sip, which was really sweet. This is my favorite thing to do with it, man. It's just to rocket ship up, catch the wing, surge it down. Yeah. So the other thing that I'll talk about is that so far I have not had to change a jet. I have not had to tune it once. I got it and started flying it at sea level, which is where it comes set from the factory. I don't need to tune anything at sea level. In Utah, I'm gonna have to change the jet, which I haven't done, so I don't know what that process is like. I think that's kind of the biggest kind of hindrance or least favorite part about the 202 is the tuning process. From the people that I know, it doesn't seem to be difficult. It just seems to be something that you have to learn. I don't know how to, I haven't had to do it, but so far it's just run phenomenal. I'm running 91 octane gas, Redline Racing, fully synthetic oil at 40-to-1 mixture. The one annoying thing is I have Mosters. I have 6 Moster engines, and I have 1 Polini, and I have to have a separate gas can that is now labeled Polini gas, do not use for Moster, and I can't interchange, which is just a little annoying hassle thing that really isn't that big of a deal. This is so fun. Oh yeah. Weight shifting with that 360 camera is hard, because I don't want to drop it. My favorite flying, man, is up in these canyons in the evening. It's just magical. It turns a pretty color, and this air is smooth, and there's just texture to flying around. Another thing that I've really noticed about this Polini that I like is that it doesn't have that RPM jump in the mid-range that Mosters can have. On some Mosters, around 5,600 RPMs, it will jump until you hit about 6,900 RPMs. There is none of that on the Polini. As far as vibration goes, I did a bunch of yanking and spanking the other day, and I got airsick. And I don't want to say it vibrates a lot, but it does vibrate. I think it vibrates about as much as a Moster does. I should fly a Moster again and re-answer that. But it doesn't seem, it's not like vibrating my brains out like a Minari used to. Minaris would vibrate your freaking skull like a Harley Davidson, you know. That's kind of what a Minari was like. A Bitterazzi is pretty smooth, but the Polini is pretty smooth. I really like that my RPM doesn't have a jumpy range, because sometimes that happens right at your sometimes that happens right at your foot drag level, and I haven't had that issue, which I've been a big fan of. There's the old basketball hoop that's just out here. Those of you that have never flown the old Salton Sea down in Southern California, there's just a basketball hoop up here, randomly. I don't know the backstory on it or anything about it, but it do just be chilling right there. Hello, basketball hoop. And there's also a telephone up here. Let's just rocket ship to the sky real quick. And there's your telephone right there, which is cool. So, I'm gonna do a little climb test here and watch my meter per second climb rate for you. Let's see. Okay. So here I go, climbing to full throttle. .5.1, 5.5. 5.7, 5.5, 5.25, 4.9. 582 temps. So it kind of fluctuates. It was hitting bottom like 3.2, top 5.9. So that's, I mean, we gained quite a bit of altitude. What are we at? I think the floor is, we're at 800 feet. Let's go see what the floor is, shall we? This is what I mean by let it breathe. Woo! Yeah, baby. Viper XC for the win. Yee! Oh, I just love it up here. All right, so the floor was 180 feet. All the way up to 800 feet. I mean, it took no time at all. Oh, I just love it up here. I mean, here's the Polini's shining characteristic, just freaking rocket ship to the sky, dude. You want power? You want something that got the oomph? That Polini's got the oomph. So we did change the oil today at 10 hours. We were late. We were supposed to change it at 5. You know, the other thing that I have noticed is this is not just the take out of the box, yank, crank, spank. So when we got it, we had to put quite a bit more time into getting it ready to fly. We had to put radiator fluid in it, which is not a big deal. It just meant that I had to go to the store and buy something that I don't normally have to buy. And then for changing the oil, I had to get 10W40 oil at a motorcycle shop, which was an hour in town, which isn't a big deal, but it was just something that I had to go buy. And like I said, those aren't big deal items, but it is something else. It's just one more thing to have to do, which isn't, like, in the grand scheme of things, okay, had to buy radiator fluid, had to get oil. It took us about a half hour to change the oil, maybe an hour. Let's call it an hour, because it was our first time. And I mean, on a downside, like, we had to do it, but it only took us an hour. And now we only have to change the oil every 25 hours. So at 25 hours, we'll change it again. At 5 hours, we were supposed to change it. We changed it at 10. I check the radiator fluid every now and then, and it's great. It's not really getting low. Haven't changed the spark plug yet. I meant to. Mike might have. I'm not sure if he did. I didn't change the spark plug, and he may have changed it. Besides that, haven't really had anything engine-wise that has given us problems. The starting is definitely something you have to get used to and learn the tricks. I can't say I've really got it nailed. Sometimes it still kicks back at me, and if you don't do it right, you will break the starter and then have to buy another one, which is definitely a thing. Hopefully I didn't break it. So far, it seems to still be working. I don't have any problems with it. Let's see where Greg is. He's on his way out here. So yeah, I mean, I'm digging the machine, man. Totally digging the machine. I'm running the Dudex small medium harness on this frame, which I like. The Soul Rev harness on the McFly, I find it just be a little tight for the smaller guy, or excuse me, for the larger guys. I'm 190 to 200 right now, floating somewhere in between there, so I'm a little on the bigger side. I'm 5'9". I find this small medium to just be muy bueno. The large, extra large on the McFly frame, you sit a little deep. Your arms are kind of in those swing arms. I don't personally love that. I'm just too short for it. If I was taller, like 6 foot, 6'2", it wouldn't be as big of an issue. But I am a big fan of the Dudek harnesses on this frame. You know, this isn't a video to sell you on the McFly frame. I just love the McFly frame. 713, so we're just cruising. You know, 713 degrees. Don't need to worry at 713. What time is it? It's 5 o'clock. We got a half hour before sunset. Yeah, sunset's 5:27. We're totally chilling. I've been airborne for 23 minutes. I probably burned 2 liters of gas. Launched with 8, so if my calculations are right, I have 6 left, which is still about an hour and a half. All around, I've been a big fan of this 202. I love the engine. I think it's fantastic. For me, I'm not a guy to really work on things. I don't mind being mechanical. I'm not terrible at being mechanical. It's just a time thing. I don't love to invest the time into it because there's a lot of other things that I like to invest my time into that are important. I run a paramotor school and a business, and those take a lot of time. If I didn't have my mechanic, Mike, who's 30-year, 40-year mechanic, thousands of hours working on cars and all the other things. Hopefully I'm not misquoting him, but anyways, super great mechanic. He's one of our instructors and our head mechanic for the school engines and stuff. Anyways, if I didn't have him, I don't know if I'd buy this engine. At least I don't know if I'd buy it without someone near me to help me. I need things explained very simply, and I hate to say it, but Polini's manuals and instructions are not very great. It's hard to get great information on the Polini. Thankfully, I'm going to shout you out. My buddy Ryan up in New Jersey has been extremely helpful for us in figuring out what is what on this Polini. If it wasn't for him, it would be difficult for me to want to own this engine. Just because of the intimidation factor, as well as all just the little pieces that go with it. But because we had help from him and because I have Mike, I'm loving it. And I think a real test is going to be taking it back to Utah, having to retune it. You know, my LZ in the morning is 1,000 feet lower than my LZ in the evening. We'll see if I have to change jets to fly one or to fly the other, and what that's really like. I don't think it's a fair review to have a review of this motor without having changed or tuned it. She is a rocket ship. You couldn't tell. Yeah, like I said, I don't think it's a super fair review to not having had to tune it, which I haven't had to do because I'm at sea level. So we'll find out what I think of it there. I'm a big fan of the Moster engines. They have power. They're not weak. They're not Polini power, that's for sure, but they're not like gutless engines where you struggle to do things. I've never struggled to do things with the Moster. I love the ease of use of a Moster. It's just so simple. You just start it and it goes and it goes and it goes. And you don't have to change things or work on things or wrench on things. Sure, it's not as efficient. Sure, it's not as powerful, but it's simple. Since Mike's around and I have people to help me, you know, I think I'll fly this engine for a long time. And if somebody bought this off me, I'd probably buy another one. And I am digging it. We'll see. I think getting used to the tuning and stuff, I may never want to switch away. I really haven't minded the weight. The 9 pounds more to me as a 24-year-old in shape, deadlifts, squats, runs, all that stuff, I haven't minded. I'm also recovering from an ankle injury back in August, as I'm sure many of you know, and the ankle hasn't minded. I did buy a bigger wing. I now fly a 20 instead of an 18, but that's partially because I also put on weight. I bulked up over the wintertime to build muscle mass back from having lost a lot while I was on recovering from my ankle injury. But, I mean, the thing has been just so sweet. It's smooth in that power range. And what I mean by smooth is it doesn't jump. It's linear. As you add, it just goes. There's not like a jump or a hiccup or a dead spot, which is really nice. Digging these canyons. If you can see though, I'm hanging out about half that height of the canyon, hugging sides just because I don't know what's coming around the other side. Once I have a bit of a clear path, I'll swoop it on down. I'm also talking, so slightly preoccupied. I think if you're thinking about getting a 202, I'd recommend it. You'd get a thumbs up from me. I do think it takes being a mechanical guy. You got to be willing to work on stuff a little bit. You got to be willing to turn a wrench. You got to be willing to change oil. You got to be willing to fill radiator fluid. If that's not you, then I don't think the Polini's for you. I'd recommend you stick with the Moster. If you don't mind working on stuff here and there and doing a little bit here and a little bit there, I think you'd love the Polini. I think if you're a 200-pound plus guy, you'll really appreciate the power, especially if you're at altitude. If you're at 3,000, 5,000 feet or higher, you'll really like having that extra oomph of the 202. I mean, the Moster gets it done, and it doesn't struggle to get it done. It's more so a question of wing size, but more power is always helpful. You know, I'm 200 pounds. The Moster doesn't struggle to hoist me around and climb me to the top of mountains, but it, you know, more power is good. One place I do see that this Polini is going to possibly be a hindrance is climbing up mountains. Like in Utah, if I want to fly to the top of a mountain that's 11,000 feet and I launch at 4,000 feet, I do think the Polini is going to run wrong at 11,000 and may struggle to get me all the way up there. I'm going to pop a U. You know, if I launch at my normal LZ and I want to fly to the top of Mount Timpanogos, which is 11,000 feet, flying from 4,000 to 11,000, I'm not sure the Polini's really going to love to go up there without running a little wrong and needing to be rejetted. From how the jetting has been explained to me, the low end is still a screw that you turn on the float car. The high end is a jet. So instead of thinking of the high end as a needle in which you turn, screw in to get leaner, back out to get richer, you change jets. Instead of running a 118, you run a 116 or a 120. That's kind of how it was explained to me. So instead of turning the high needle to 2 minutes or 5 minutes or 10 minutes, depending on how far you need to, you just change the jet. And I think if you think of it like that, it's not nearly as intimidating as it could be. I also think, uh-oh, is my 360 cam turning off? I also think if you're blowing up the engine, right, if it's running too hot and blowing a hole in the piston, it's because you're running too lean, obviously. And I think being able to see the EGT sensor and kind of getting a feel for how it's supposed to feel, and that shouldn't be as much of a problem. I find the guys that are running the sensors that know what it feels like to be running just a tad rich, where it's kind of got a little stutter to it, aren't having problems blowing them up. It's if you're running it where it's just screaming and just kicking with power, where you may have a problem blowing it up. Knock on wood, hopefully I don't ever blow it up. I recently blew up my Moster. Hey, it's Greg! And that was because I turned it too lean. I mean, you'll blow Mosters just like you'll blow Polinis. If you run an engine too lean, you'll blow it. Get her too hot, she'll go. But, I mean, we'll see. The time will really tell. Like I said, I'm just crossing over my 11th hour probably as we speak. And as you'll notice, like, I've been up in this canyon, been ripping for probably 30 minutes now. I haven't thought about the temps once. I haven't peaked once, except for right there. I just don't think of it while I'm modulating temp RPM. If I'm just cruising, that's a different story. Hey, Gregski! What up, Greg? All right, guys. Well, there's my thoughts on the Polini Thor 202. I'll give some concluding thoughts once I land, but that is probably a wrap on my canyon flight thoughts for you. Well, I had to finish with fuel burn to hour ratio. Flew for 1 hour and 4 minutes, landed with 3 liters of fuel, launched with 8, burned 5 liters in 1 hour. That is not nearly as impressive as expected. It's probably because I was ripping it the whole time. It kind of surprises me. That's actually the worst fuel burn I've had so far. Anyways, I'll catch up with you guys in a bit.
What's up, guys? All right, this is the final concluding thoughts of this 10-hour impression video. I'm not going to call this a review. This is more so just a first 10 hours of this Paramotor's life. Impression, my first impression, what I think of it so far. I think I have close to 15 hours on it now at this point. So like I said, guys, so far I've been enjoying this. I went over it again in detail out at the canyon. I'm enjoying it. I'm gonna continue to put time on this. I don't think this is a super fair review of the engine because I haven't had to tune it. I've done 0 tuning to the engine. It came preset for sea level. We're at sea level. It runs great. I literally didn't have to do anything to it. We head back to Utah in a month or 2, and I will be having to mess with it, of course, to fly it up at altitude. And I will give a updated review in the future after I put about 100 hours is kind of my goal on the engine, and have to change jets and mess with tuning, all of those things. That will be a more official review. This is a first impressions. So far, loving the engine. I look forward to more hours. I look forward to more flying. Thank you guys for watching. If you are interested in more information about this unit, if you would like to learn to fly, or have any questions about wings, we'd be more than happy to help you. My name is Trevor Steele. I look forward to seeing you guys in the next video. Thank you. Take it easy.